When I think back to that summer, it all feels like a hazy dream, the kind that starts with laughter and ends in silence. Daniel and I had been inseparable since our first year at university. He was that kind of guy who could charm anyone, smart, fearless, the kind who never backed down from an adventure. I was the quieter one, the planner, the voice of reason. Together, we somehow balanced each other out. After graduation, we promised that life wouldn't pull us apart, not the way it usually does. He talked constantly about travelling through South America, exploring ancient ruins, trekking through rainforests, and finding himself. I used to joke that he'd come back as a monk or a poet. When he finally decided to go, I was both proud and envious. He said it was just going to be a 3-month road trip across Chile, Bolivia, and Peru with a few backpackers he met online. It sounded reckless, but that was Daniel, the guy who lived life like it was a challenge he had to win. The day he left, he hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe and said, "Don't worry, mate. I'll message you from the road. I'll send proof that I'm still alive." And for a while, he did. The first few weeks were full of life, photos of desserts, night bonfires, and endless laughter. But then, about 2 months in, the tone of his messages began to shift. He started mentioning a place he'd found near the Andes. A hidden village, and he called it. Said it wasn't on any map, but locals whispered about it. According to him, the village was filled with travellers who decided never to go back home. "It's peaceful here," he wrote. "Everyone seems free." That last word, free, kept echoing in my head. After that, his messages came less often. 1 week without a reply turned into 2. By the time a month had passed, I had gone from slightly concerned to deeply uneasy. I sent him voice notes, pictures, even memes. But nothing came back. Then, one morning, I woke up to an email. It was from Daniel. The subject line just said, "I'm okay." The message read, "Hey bro. Sorry for the silence. I'm staying in a small place near the Bolivian border. It's different here, like time doesn't matter. No Wi-Fi, no roads, just nature. The people here believe in detaching from the world. I've learned so much. It's strange, but I feel like I belong here." That was the last time I ever heard from him. Weeks turned into months. I tried convincing myself he was just off-grid, living that free spirit life he'd always talked about. But the silence kept eating at me. Then came the call, the one that changed everything. It was Daniel's sister, Hannah. Her voice trembled as she told me he'd missed her birthday, something he never did. And their mother hadn't heard from him in over 3 months. I told her about the email, but when she asked me to forward it, I noticed something I hadn't before. The message wasn't from his usual Gmail. It was a different address, one I didn't recognize, and it looked strange. That detail hit me like ice water. Hannah said they'd contacted the police in Chile, but the authorities didn't have much to go on. The last official record of Daniel's travel was a hostel check-in from a small town called San Roque del Valle, deep in the Andes. After that, nothing. His passport hadn't been used again. His phone was off. His social media accounts went dead. And that's when Hannah said something that still makes my stomach twist to this day. The embassy traced a message from an old radio station near the mountains. They said someone used Daniel's name to sign a form, just days after his last email to you. That was it. That's when I knew something was terribly wrong. I told her that if no one was going to look for him, I would. It wasn't bravery. It was guilt. For months, I'd been the one reassuring everyone that Daniel was fine, that he'd show up with some wild story about meditating with monks or living with tribes. But deep down, I think I knew something darker was waiting behind that silence. So I started planning. I used every bit of my savings and booked a one-way ticket to Santiago, Chile. From there, I'd head north to San Roque del Valle to find out what happened to my best friend. The night before the flight, I barely slept. I kept scrolling through our old messages, listening to his voice notes on repeat, trying to find clues in the little things he said. In one of the last ones, he laughed and said, "If you ever come looking for me, follow the old road where the mountains hum." At the time, I thought it was just poetic nonsense. But as I boarded the flight, those words played in my head over and over again. When I landed in Chile after 17 hours, the air felt heavy. Not from the heat, but from the weight of everything I didn't know. I rented a cheap room in a rundown hotel near the bus terminal and contacted Daniel's mother. She wired me some money to help with the journey. When I woke up, the air around me was thick, damp, heavy, and filled with a strange humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. My head ached, my throat was dry, and for a moment I couldn't even remember where I was. Then it all rushed back. The jungle, the commune, the knife, the panic, mass, and Stalker. I was lying on the dirt floor of a bamboo hut, my wrists tied loosely with a piece of rope. A young man sat nearby sharpening a machete. He didn't say a word, just looked at me occasionally with a dull, distant gaze. The moment he left, I tried to wriggle free. My wrists were raw by the time I finally slipped one hand out and I stumbled outside. What I saw was unlike anything I'd ever imagined. The village, and a peace town as they called it, looked like a forgotten world built by lost souls. Wooden huts covered in vines, fire pits surrounded by people meditating, children painting symbols on walls, and grown men dancing barefoot in the mud as if the jungle itself had possessed them. It was paradise and madness at once, and there in the centre of it all was Stalker, sitting cross-legged in front of a fire, his eyes closed, a strange symbol painted on his chest. He looked peaceful, but not alive in the way I remembered. When he opened his eyes, he saw me and smiled faintly. "Didn't think you'd wake up so soon," he said calmly, as if nothing had happened. I didn't know whether to hug him or punch him. "What the hell is this place, Andy?" "Who are these people?" He looked around, his expression unreadable. "They're the only ones who understand. We call this the circle. Out there, people live for money and power. Here, we've let go of all that I scoffed. You call being tied up and threatened with a knife letting go." He didn't flinch. "You don't understand yet." "You will. Everyone fights it at first." Something about his tone chilled me to my bones. It wasn't the voice of my old friend anymore. It was rehearsed, almost mechanical. Later that evening, I was taken to what they called the Hall of Stillness, a wooden structure lit by dozens of candles. People sat in circles chanting in different languages. The air smelled of incense and sweat. An old man with white hair and bright blue eyes entered. Everyone fell silent. Stalker whispered, "That's him. The founder." The man's voice was low and hypnotic. "We live where no eyes can see, no rules can reach. The jungle hides us because it knows our purpose. Each of you was brought here for a reason." Then he looked straight at me. "But some," he said, pausing, "still cling to the chains of the outside world." My heart pounded. I didn't say a word, but I could feel everyone's eyes burning into me. The founder smiled slightly and moved on. That night, they let me sleep in a wooden hut guarded by 2 men. Through the cracks in the wall, I could see the jungle glowing under the moonlight. And in the distance, faint flickers of torches moving through the trees. I didn't know if they were villagers, smugglers, or worse. By morning, the jungle was alive again with noise. The people were chanting, cooking, and working in groups. Stalker brought me food, rice, fruits, and something that smelled like herbs. He sat beside me. "You shouldn't have fought back yesterday," he said softly. "Layla is important here." "She tried to stab me, Andy." He sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. "She's just protective. Outsiders don't belong here unless they choose to." "And if they don't?" I asked. He looked away. "They don't stay long." That line stayed in my head, like a curse. Later that day, I wandered near the stream at the edge of the village, pretending to wash my hands. That's when I saw something. a small patch of freshly dug earth. Something metallic glinted under the soil. When no one was watching, I brushed the dirt aside and saw a chain and a locket with initials carved into it. MJ. It wasn't Andy's. It wasn't anyone I knew. When I asked Stalker about it later, his expression changed. His calm mask cracked for the first time. "Don't ask questions like that," he said. "Not here." That night, I couldn't sleep. The jungle was too loud. Drums beat in the distance. Faint voices chanted words I couldn't understand. And then, screams. Short, sharp, and human. I sat up, heart pounding. I peeked through the bamboo walls. In the clearing near the fire pit, several villagers were gathered around something. Or someone. 2 men held torches. Another one was shouting. The founder stood in front, arms raised, speaking in that deep, slow rhythm. I couldn't see clearly, but I saw the shape of a man on his knees, hands tied behind his back. And then, a flash. The man collapsed. No one screamed. They just kept chanting louder now. I covered my mouth, terrified to make a sound. By dawn, the clearing was empty. When I found Andy, he looked distant again, as if nothing had happened. I wanted to grab him and shh.
I wanted to grab him and shake him back to reality, but he looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "Once you've seen it, you're part of it. Whether you stay or not doesn't matter anymore." And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Maybe he didn't want to leave. Maybe he couldn't. Owen secretly plans his escape, discovers evidence that the circle recruits foreigners under false pretenses, learns about a hidden ritual that takes place under a forbidden temple, and realizes Stalker might be too far gone to save. The deeper the team went into the heart of the island, the stranger everything became. The air grew heavier. The insects stopped buzzing. The ocean waves, once constant, now sounded distant, as if muffled by something unseen. Lena paused and checked her equipment. Her compass spun wildly, refusing to point north. "Magnetic interference again," she muttered. But Dr. Aaron wasn't convinced. "No," he said softly. "This isn't magnetic. It's energy." He knelt down and pressed his palm against the red soil. It was warm, too warm, not from the sun, but from beneath. Suddenly a low rumble echoed through the ground. At first they thought it was thunder, but then the earth breathed. A faint pulse vibrated beneath their feet, like the slow heartbeat of something ancient. They followed the pulse toward a rocky slope. There, half buried under vines and moss, stood a massive stone formation. It wasn't a natural rock. It was carved. Shapes, symbols, circles within circles. Dr. Aaron's eyes widened. These markings, they're thousands of years old. Older than any known civilization on this continent, Lena raised her camera drone and began recording. The moment the drone hovered above the stones, the signal cut. Her screen went black, static. Then, a whisper. Not human, not digital, something else. "Leave." Everyone froze. "Did you hear that?" whispered Marco. Aaron nodded slowly, pale as chalk. "Yes, but it wasn't outside." "What do you mean?" He looked up. "It came from inside the stones." As night fell, they set up camp near the ruins. No wind, no sound, only the faint hum from the earth. Lena sat by the fire, writing in her journal. "Greater than, there's something alive in this island," she wrote. "Not in the way we understand life, but in a way that remembers." She closed the notebook and looked out into the darkness. 2 glowing dots stared back at her from the trees. Eyes, watching. She didn't wake the others. She just stared back until the eyes blinked and disappeared. The next morning, half the camp equipment was missing. Their tents had been opened, but no footprints were left behind. Aaron examined the site. "They didn't walk here," he whispered. "They came through." Through what? The same thing that powers the stones. That afternoon, the sky turned crimson. A storm approached from the west, but the clouds didn't move like normal ones. They spiraled above the ruins, perfectly centered. The humming from the earth grew louder. Lena clutched her head. It's in my ears. It's inside my head. Then the stones began to glow. A dull red light pulsed from within the carvings, slow, rhythmic, alive. Dr. Aaron shouted over the roar of the storm, "It's a beacon!" These stones were never tombs. They're a signal. Marco yelled, "Signal to what?" The answer came as the ground split open before them. From beneath the stone altar, a dark mist poured out, thick and heavy, like smoke that wanted to crawl. Shapes began to form within the mist, humanoid, but distorted. Voices whispered in 1,000 forgotten tongues. And in that chaos, Lena heard one word clearly, repeated over and over again. Return, return, return. Aaron fell to his knees, trembling. He realized what it meant. Greater than, "This place isn't ancient," he said. "It's still active. It's waiting for something, or someone, to return." The storm grew violent. Trees bent and snapped. Lightning struck the stones, and instead of shattering, they absorbed it. Lena grabbed Aaron's hand. "We have to go!" But he resisted. "If we leave now, no one will believe what we found. We'll die here if we stay." Suddenly, silence. Everything stopped. The mist retracted. The wind froze mid-blow, and the stones went dark again. A strange calm filled the air, as if the island itself had gone back to sleep. Lena looked around. Marco was gone. No footprints. No trace. Just his camera, lying on the ground, still recording. On the last frame, a silhouette stood behind him. It wasn't human. It was taller, with the same red glow as the stones. Lena's breathing quickened. She turned to Aaron, but he wasn't moving. He was staring at the ruins, eyes wide open, whispering something again and again. "It's beautiful. It's all connected." She shook him. "Aaron!" Snap out of it. But when he turned, his pupils glowed faint red. Lena screamed and ran toward the shore. She didn't stop, not even when the jungle seemed to shift around her. Paths she'd crossed earlier were gone. The island had changed. When she finally reached the beach, her boat was still there, untouched. She jumped in, started the engine, and sped away without looking back. Only once she reached open water did she dare to glance behind. The island was gone, completely vanished beneath the ocean waves. 3 months later, a small fishing crew off the Pacific coast reported something unusual. A massive landform had reappeared overnight. Red rocks, perfectly round formations, visible from miles away. The captain described it in his logbook. Greater than, it rose from the sea like it was breathing, glowing faint red beneath the waves. And I swear, we heard voices coming from the wind. The report was never published, but one of the crewmen uploaded a short video clip online before it was taken down. In the footage, a single word could be heard, faint, distorted, almost human. Return. Lena drifted for hours before she was rescued by a passing cargo ship. When they pulled her aboard, she was shaking, sunburned, and unable to speak. For the next 2 days, she said nothing, only stared at the horizon, where the island had once been. The captain reported her to the nearest coastal authorities. By the time they reached the mainland, news had already spread. A missing expedition returns with no proof, no team, and no explanation. The world wanted answers, but Lena didn't have any. In a quiet hospital room, she replayed the last video footage from Marco's camera, again and again. Each time, the same thing happened. The red light, the whisper, the figure behind him. When she slowed the footage to 1 frame per second, something new appeared. Not a shape, but a pattern. A symbol carved into the air itself, glowing faintly before fading. She took a photo of it and sent it to Dr. Samuel Reese, an archaeologist and linguist who specialized in extinct pre-human scripts. He called her within the hour. "Where did you find this?" he asked, voice trembling. "On an island west of the Pacific Ridge." He went silent for several seconds. Miss Hale, this symbol shouldn't exist. What do you mean? It matches carvings found in underwater ruins off the coast of Antarctica, nearly 14,000 years old. But this one is reversed. It's like a reflection, or a response. Days later, Dr. Reese invited her to his private research facility. He'd been working on ancient energy theories, the idea that some prehistoric sites weren't built for worship, but communication. He showed her holographic scans of stone tablets retrieved from various ocean trenches. Each one carried the same circular pattern, energy radiating outward. These weren't just carvings, he explained. They're instructions. The ancients were trying to speak to something beneath the earth, or perhaps beyond it. Lena's heart pounded. You think Uluru, the island, the other sites, they're connected. Yes, Reese said, but that island was different. It wasn't a receiver. He looked directly at her. It was a transmitter. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She played Marco's last video again, turning the audio into a spectrogram, a visual representation of sound frequencies. Her blood ran cold. The whisper that repeated return wasn't random noise. It formed a structure, identical to the wave pattern of seismic energy recorded during undersea volcanic events. It wasn't a word. It was a signal. She stared at the graph, realizing what it meant. The island wasn't just alive. It was calling something. 2 weeks later, the world changed. Satellite images showed unusual tectonic activity across the Pacific floor. Seismographs detected rhythmic pulses, not earthquakes, not explosions, just vibrations repeating every 18 hours. At first, scientists dismissed it as natural. But then, the vibrations began to form patterns, circular, precise, and mathematical, identical to the symbol Lena had found. Dr. Reese contacted her immediately. They're responding, he said. Who? She whispered. He hesitated. Whatever we've awakened. The government classified all data within hours. Research stations near the Pacific were ordered to shut down. Satellite imaging of the area was restricted, but the ocean didn't stop. The red glow beneath the waves began to spread, visible from space. Fishing crews from Chile to Japan reported strange lights below the surface, and a low hum that made compasses spin wildly. And then, one night, the hum reached the mainland. It wasn't loud, more like a vibration.